If you've been keeping an active eye on the latest Stellaris news, then you may have heard about the new Toxoid species pack showing up to the proverbial Xeno block with surprisingly good reviews. As of the past year, however, Stellaris DLC has been a truly mixed bag in my opinion, and one of the big contributing factors that made me gradually lose interest in the game as a longtime fan. If you're an ancient dinosaur like me, then you may recall smaller DLCs in the past like Distant Stars and Plantoids that didn't fare too well compared to some of the major expansions. Speaking of which, DLC like Apocalypse, Utopia, and Leviathans always added new and interesting content to the game, which brings me on to the next point. With the advent of the Laguin update, I truly feel that this is where Stellaris DLC became far more inconsistent as a recurring theme. Big updates and patches, while they weren't always scot-free of bugs, as you know Paradox had a decent amount of polish until the Megacorp expansion dropped. This update had numerous issues with balancing and glitches that needed to be urgently patched out as soon as it hit Steam shelves. But strangely, almost as if it was an out-of-season April Fool's joke, Paradox went on holiday break and took a significant amount of time off. Now, I'm not telling you this history lesson as a means to simply extend view time, although I am also doing that, wink wink, but the main purpose is to provide context for the big Overlord expansion. Like Megacorp, I believe that there are many striking similarities and overtones that can't simply be ignored between the two. In both instances, the developers went on a long hiatus after the expansion was released, leaving a smaller team in turn to clean up the mess. Both releases also chose a point of content to hyperfixate on, this being respectively corporations and vassals. And finally, both had oddly sized development windows. Other releases have had similar issues, but when you bring them all together in one pack, you can have major issues with releasing your expansion to meet consumer demand. In my opinion, the most damning part of these expansions aside from the timing and patching process is the actual content that resides within the DLC. Megacorp, Overlord, and even Toxoids fixate on a certain aspect of gameplay, and while it is important to gradually flesh out every nook and cranny of the game to provide coverage to different playstyles, I find myself running into the issue that if I don't feel like playing a corporation or vassalizing other empires, most of that content for these DLCs is unavailable to me. Sure, I can interact with other vassals and create contracts with AI megacorporations, but I am getting DLC blocked or cock-blocked in this instance by DLC that I already purchased. This part of the video essay is a lot more opinionated, but I am of the belief that a vassal mechanic or megacorp mechanic could have easily been lumped into a pre-existing expansion like Federations, which vassalization already takes a lot from, or made into its own standalone content pack. Toxoids, in my opinion, does hone in on the aspects like pollution and planetary degradation, and it may even sound hypocritical, but I think that the DLC succeeds because it is very self-contained. If you don't like the type of content presented, you can always buy the next species pack they release. However, Toxoids additionally provides content for those players that may want something more than just a cosmetic skin pack with a few bells and whistles. Knights of the Toxic God and Overtuned are origins that are about as fanatically opposite as can be. Knights of the Toxic God gives players a progression system and more immersive RP experiences centralized to the player empire, while Overtuned opens up options for players that like to min-max at the expense of their own planetary ecosystem. It's not that expansion packs like Overlord don't offer this type of piecemeal approach to player playstyles, but I feel like they go too deep and try to appease certain types of players without being inclusive enough for the community as a whole. Successful DLC like Apocalypse, Federations, and Utopia all zoom out instead of zooming in. They go for broader strokes while being immersion friendly to players. The systems they provide do not have to dramatically alter player playstyles, but slowly ease them into this. Apocalypse has the gradual escalation of the Khanate, Federation slowly introduces players to the galactic community, and Utopia offers an isolated ascension path that has a unique identity depending on the player's choices. Overlord instead requires that the player go out on their own initiative and pursue vassalization of another sovereign nation. While this might not always be the case, it tends to be quite a violent process that would otherwise look bloc pacifist and isolationist out of an otherwise interesting concept. I believe that there is a time and place to let players directly intervene in Xeno affairs, but it has to be of their own volition and not out of a desire to get their money's worth from the next DLC. I am sure that viewers with a more aggressive playstyle may disagree, and I accept that of course, but I don't think that the ideas that Overlord introduces are that bad. We did need vassal reworks, but that came at the cost of sacrificing a more cohesive experience. If you like this video and are interested in more long-form content, please feel free to check out my Stellaris playlist where I cover and break down the game from a longtime player's perspective. I also do other videos on 4X games like Civilization, Humankind, and Crusader Kings 3. Thanks for watching.